I'm Julia, this is Chris. We're here at our Shopfront Theatre, which is in City Arcade in Coventry. This is our theatre space. We are Theatre Absolute, and we've been creating work here over the last 9 years. This space that we're in used to be a fish and chip shop, and we've been working with other partners, other creators, and as I say, writing and commissioning work here in this space for 9 years, and pioneering a new model for theatre. Thinking about that idea, that concept, what is a civic theatre?
So over the last 2 years we've been making a project called Are We Where We Are, which has consisted of 9 pieces of work which we've made since May 2017 up to now to December 2018. And the project came about really from a provocation from an essayist, an American essayist called Henry David Thoreau, who basically wrote something in a book called Walden Pond, where he said, "We are not where we think we are, but in a false position," which was really interesting to us at the time when we were making our work and have been making our work here in the space. And one of the things that we began to think about was, what did that mean to us socially and politically, especially in, I guess, certainly in this recent years, very turbulent sort of times that we've been living in socially and politically. So we began to think about how we might respond to that, but we wanted to make it a question rather than a statement. So we took a little bit of a license with Thoreau's quote and made it into a question: are we where we are? We then set about commissioning a bunch of writers and artists and putting out an open call to people to respond and to create work that was sometimes 10, 15, 20 minutes long, sometimes was full-length work. It really depended what we wanted it to be. It could be anything in some respects. We weren't bothered about necessarily trying to make full-length traditional plays, even though we are a theatre company. We wanted people who were writers but not necessarily performers, and people who were performers but not necessarily writers, and people who weren't either of those to actually respond as much as they could personally and politically to that statement. So over the last 2 years, we've been making that work in a whole variety of different ways. A lot of the stuff is up behind us, all the different pieces.
I suppose what we've learned is, like, when you start a project, you can kind of have a framework of an idea, but what's been incredible about this is, like, we couldn't prescribe some of the journey that we've been on over the last 2 years, the conversations that we've had, and the way that the project and the 9, which turned into 15 commissions, actually really opened up the debate of, are we where we are?
And also, I think we've talked about this a few times, is that the learning as well is also the risk that's involved in that. Is that, you know, this was a very open brief to the people who responded to the provocation. We had conversations with them, and I read, you know, drafts of the things that they were writing, but it was still a huge risk artistically, because we sometimes had not always completely sure how things might come together or how things might work. But that was really exciting for us, because it was, again, like Julia mentioned before, is trying to think of a new model for theatre and new ways to make theatre, and it was just hugely collaborative, which was the most exciting thing.
And then the other element that everybody tries to factor in is just what happens to that project or that question when you then bring in audience who, you know, what we learned over this is that absolutely want to be part of this conversation. The discussions that we had afterwards, the responses from people, like writing in, sending in poems about, I saw so-and-so the other night, I wanted to respond, I've written a poem. And then that leading us on to saying, well, let's show this work as well as the work that we're creating. That was something that we never kind of imagined at the beginning, but it just really enriched the project, didn't it?
Yeah, and I think if essentially we asked the question, are we where we are? I don't know if we have any answers, but we didn't really expect any, but everyone's opinion was different, which we expected. But like Julia's saying, but the key thing is that it opened up a huge debate between ourselves as theatre makers, with the artists, the different artists that we work with, and most importantly with our audiences, you know, big kind of conversations, which we really feel that people want to have those conversations, and they really want to sort of dissect that, you know, are we where we are? Are we where we really think we are? So that's been hugely rewarding.